Hello everybody, this is my 8-gallon Kobalt air compressor. I bought it a few years ago when I started working on my own cars in my driveway because an air compressor is an invaluable tool. You need it for cleaning off parts, running air tools, what have you. The problem with it is it cannot really run high CFM air tools like this 1/2-inch air impact here. Watch what happens when I pull the trigger of the air impact. As you can see, the tool pressure side drops way faster than the tank pressure. And the simple reason for that is because the air regulator does not have the CFM necessary to run this tool. So on today's video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be increasing the capacity of this air compressor system, and we are also going to be increasing the flow as well. And I'm going to accomplish this by doing minimal modifications to the air compressor and doing it as cheaply as possible. Okay, so I got my truck jacked up, got the impact here set to reverse speed 5, and we're just going to see how long it takes for me to remove all of the lug nuts off this. Well, it was able to get off one, and then that was it. Well, that's nice. Very nice. Yeah, you can just hear the impact bog way down. It just loses all of its power, so. Alright, well, I think that answers that. What I mean by minimal modification is I'm not going to modify the air compressor at all. The reason I'm not going to is because the second I start taking this plastic piece off, throwing new regulators on it, all that stuff, you kind of lose the portability of this air compressor. I want all of the important bits to be protected by this plastic shell thing because I still like to take this thing to other places, throw it in the back of my truck, use it, elsewhere other than my garage. So that's not what we're going to be doing today. What we are going to be doing, however, is basically adding a surge tank or a reserve tank, if you want to call it that. I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up the 5-gallon portable air tank. Hindsight being 2020, I probably should have bought the 11-gallon one that they have because it's only $20 more and you essentially get double the capacity. If I end up not liking this one, I suppose I can just return it, so it's not a big deal. But I got the crappy low flow bung thing that was on the top of here. It just wasn't going to meet my needs, so I went to Grainger and I bought a couple of nickel-plated brass fittings, and then I have a high-flow Merlin fitting also from Harbor Freight, and then a 3/8 hose here. So we're essentially going to connect the air compressor to the tank, and then connect the tank to an air hose, and this will basically be an intermediary between the tool and the air compressor. So let's start plumbing everything up. I realized in the introduction I didn't go over the parts that I used, so I'm going to go over them now. This is a 1/2-inch to 1/4-inch NPT fitting. This is a 1/4-inch NPT female T. Then we have a Merlin high flow fitting, and then just a regular 1/4-inch industrial fitting on this side. And then I made this hose here with a 1/4-inch industrial fitting with the matching female 1/4-inch industrial fitting with this hose. And this hose is going to connect to the air compressor. And I'm going to move everything to its final resting place, and then I'll show you the final setup. Okay, so this is the final setup of the air compressor. So we have the hose going into this tank. We have the high flow fitting going up into this 100-foot hose reel, which no matter what you do to your air compressor, get a hose reel mounted on the wall. It's so handy. It's like the best thing I've ever done for my garage. All we have to do is hook up the air impact to it, run the hose outside, and try it on my truck to see if what I did worked. Before we go out and test the impact wrench, there's one thing I will say. This tank is rated for 125 PSI, and my air compressor is rated for 150 PSI. That extra 25 PSI probably isn't a big deal. However, to err on the side of caution, I have set the regulator to 125 PSI, so we shouldn't have any issues there. I will eventually be installing a air release valve over there, but just haven't done it yet. But eventually I will get around to it. Okay, we're back out here. I'm on speed number 5. I'm going to try to take this wheel off. Now remember, the compressor couldn't even take 2 lug nuts off last time, so even if it takes off 2, we've already won. Okay, so I think that's pretty definitive. All the lug nuts were able to come off, and before, remember, the air compressor couldn't even do 2. Granted, I was slowed down quite a lot. However, these lug nuts are so chewed up, the socket kept getting caught on the lug nuts, so I was slowed down a lot by that. But this air impact was able to do this, and the air compressor didn't kick on once. That was awesome. I've never had that happen before, and honestly, I didn't even think this crappy little air impact could do it, but turns out it totally can. So I think that's all we have for today. You all have a good one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.